Welcome to the Hope Football Coaches Show on 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com. Greg Chandler, Mike Coleman, head football coach Dean Kreps. Chris Lee, the sophomore running back for the Flying Dutchman, will be joining us shortly after 6:30 here on the Hope Football Coaches Show. But, Coach, we wanted to talk briefly about the Albion ball game. And I wanted to go back, not necessarily to the play at the end of the ball game, but kind of what goes into a decision on whether to go for one or for two. Obviously, you went for two. Mike and I totally agreed with the call on to go for two. But when do you make a call like that? I mean, you're down 21-14 or down 7 points. You've been in enough close games in your career. When do you, as a coach, make a decision, reading what's going on in the ball game, as to decide, okay, we got to go for two and take our shot, or we think we can take them in overtime? What goes into a decision like that?
Well, you're looking at the play sheet right in front of you for this upcoming game. There's a 2-point play on their run and a 2-point play pass. We practiced those for the last 2 weeks. Could I do it over? I'd probably run the ball, but, that's neither here nor there now. We were going down to score, and we felt like we still had time to run. I mean, we had that stoppage of play. And
right.
Chris remembers I came out in the huddle and I said, hey, we can run it one more time here and still have time to do what we want. Fortunately, that was a play we scored on. About 2 plays before that, Jake Manning, my quarterback coach, who handles all the substitutions and everything, personnel, said to me, are you going to go for one or two? I mean, there was not a question whether we were going to score. He said, are we going to go for one or two? At that point, I was still just trying to get the play calls. The thing people don't understand, you have about 20 seconds,
right,
to make.
You
those
you don't have a lot of time.
So all the thinking needs to come in practice and in your office ahead of time. So when you get into those situations, you know what you want to go to. And so luckily gave Chris the ball, he scored. And then I just felt it was right. And I really hadn't made the decision until we scored, but we had the momentum. We'd rushed for 310 yards at that point. Probably should have put it on the ground and ran it, but for whatever reason, called the 2-point pass play, and we couldn't squeeze the trigger quick enough and get it off. So,
well, Dean, we talked last week about some of the keys for the ball game, and we talked about time of possession, keeping Albion's offense off the field. We did that.
We lost the time of possession battle, I think, in the first 3 games. We were down about 35-25 time of possession over the course of the first 3, and we won the time of possession by 35-25 this week. Usually that's a good indicator because you're moving the ball, but Alma in their game against you were just talking about
Alma tried, yeah.
They had the ball more or that less and still won the game. So it doesn't always do it, but that's one of the keys. That was one of them. We needed to keep their offense off the field. I felt like we did that. Defense take out just a handful of times, and we cut their offense in half. So
right.
It's tough to be too upset with their defense. Obviously, the one long drive we gave up, we needed to put the brakes on there somewhere, and we couldn't do it. But defense also gave us 2 short tracks that we didn't do anything with. You can pull out about 5 plays in any game. I don't care what the score is, and say those were game changers. Those were game changers for us.
How would you, if you talk about game changers, I think one of the huge ones was you got the fumble recovery after a bad snap on the 25-yard line. You don't get a first down. You try a field goal, it misses. That was huge. That was probably one of the factors.
I think I called a pass on first down. We're running the ball for about 5.6 a carry on first down. It's a little bit of a tendency for us, but it still works. It's what we do. It works. I've got to stick with that, until we can prove otherwise.
Well, Mike and I were talking after the game last week, and we think you guys have a formula going forward. I mean, to be able to run the football like you did against Albion, you can take that game with you. And I mean, you have primarily been you've adjusted your play calling over the years, but you're a run-first guy. I mean, as long as I've known you, you have been a run-first guy.
I've always said my dream is if I could just call like 30 dives or 30 leads, ISO plays in a row and go up the field, that would be like the ultimate for me. Unfortunately, you can't do it that way. We need to blend the pass a little bit better, and the weather conditions were terrible. I mean, they're Dominic Bona, their quarterback, great quarterback, didn't have a great night throwing either. He only had about 20 more yards than Rob had for us. It just, the balls were wet, the balls were heavy, your hands were wet. It was cold. I mean, anybody who was at that game, that was not ideal conditions.
Yeah, I mean, Rob Kish, I mean, you take a look at the numbers, just strictly at the numbers, 6 of 27. But, boy, he made some big throws on that last drive.
Yeah.
I mean,
Matt Kroll came up big, had most of his catches in the last drive. I mean, you got to remember that was a 3rd and 19 and a 4th and 9, and we converted those. Otherwise, that game's over right there.
Right.
So when it counted, we did it. We need to be able to do that a little bit more at our pleasure. We can't just do it when we have to. But, I'm still pretty happy with that.
And, we were talking about the numbers, too, in the passing department. Yeah, Rob went 6 for 27, but he was a lot more aggressive downfield. Bona was content just kind of dump it in the flat most times.
3 yards here, 4 yards there.
It's weird. I walked in with Rob at halftime. I said, what balls do you feel confident with? And this is really weird that he said this. He goes, I feel better with the deep balls. The balls that he had to zip and put something on it, you couldn't get a grip. And so he said, I've got a better chance with the deep stuff, and that's what we did a little bit later with the stop route and stuff.
He was working his hands, trying to get his hands dry the whole game, and was not lost on that.
Yeah. Hey, he's the right guy, and he still got us 80 yards and a touchdown with his feet, too, playing quarterback. If the quarterback has positive yards at all, it's big.